Jen Shah tricked elderly and vulnerable people into purchasing online services that they didn't need and served no real function at all. Hundreds of people, hundreds of little old people, lost their entire life savings so Jen Shah could live an extravagant lifestyle and basically be famous. Much of that extravagant lifestyle was documented in the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, as were many of the proclamations Jen Shah made about her own innocence after all of this came out. Sometimes you have to wonder if Bravo is operating some kind of dragnet for scum.
So take responsibility! That's why you work, bitches. That's why you work.
Jen Shah, born in 1973 as Jennifer Liu, moved from Hawaii to Salt Lake City with her parents when she was about 6. She went to the University of Utah, where she met her husband, Sharif Shah. They married in 1994 and had 2 sons together. According to Jen, about 5 years into their marriage, she asked Sharif to convert to Mormonism, but he pulled an Uno reverse card on her. Black people weren't even allowed into the Mormon church until the 1970s, he presumably bellowed. This apparently stunning fact led Jen to convert to Islam.
Assalamu alaikum, bitches!
And that's pretty much all we know about Jen Shah, for sure, until 2012, where she started a nationwide telemarketing scam. What a good idea. The structure of the scheme and its many sales flaws is fairly complicated. Shah owned and operated several companies and worked with others which she controlled, but which usually presented themselves as independent entities. The scam itself, though, was pretty simple. One Shah-owned company, such as Vision Solutions Management, would send out unsolicited emails and make cold calls offering business coaching services. These services offered to help people set up an online business, not sell anything in particular, whatever the customer wanted. They offered to help people sell things they themselves were making, and also to help people dropship items they'd never seen nor warehoused. The idea was the company would guide people through the process: website building, site registration, setting up payment processes. But they would offer the guidance to do these things at greatly overinflated costs. Thousands and thousands of dollars for binders and coaching sessions on how to register domain names and make landing pages. The sort of thing you can learn for free on YouTube or looking up a WikiHow. The sort of thing that you can really do in a matter of minutes. A different company, also controlled by Shah, such as Position Gurus, 5-Star Quest, MPG, Hyper Global Compu Meganet, claiming to be unrelated to the first, would then contact anyone who'd bought the first phase of coaching and offer them more outrageously expensive guidance on the next steps, SEO and optimization. Some people signed up in the first, turning your computer on phase. Others already had businesses online they weren't sure what to do with, and were brought in the second phase. If anyone bought anything, other companies, or really the same company, would pump these customers for everything they had. One victim paid $35,000 over 3 months trying to start a home e-commerce business. Then, that particular customer was locked out of their own website, and one of Shah's companies offered to fix it for $1,800. I cannot stress enough how little that $35,000 bought. Reading materials provided, doing homework, talking to a coach, and writing blog posts. The DOJ describes these services as virtually non-existent. The victims were naive, yes, but it's important to note that they were almost always old. It's obvious from this case alone that a lot of 75-year-olds are not internet savvy. Many of the people targeted had actually run successful offline businesses before, but they just didn't understand how to do things online. Shah's companies would call people they had duped into buying nothing and try to sell them more, sometimes several times a day. They hounded elderly and vulnerable people who didn't understand what they were buying, and they squeezed their life savings out of them. They literally sold courses on getting online businesses to people who did not own a computer. According to the DOJ, Shah was the mastermind behind all of this. She operated the various sales floors around the country where all of these phone calls were coming from. She hired and trained the employees in how to run the scheme. She set the prices that each downstream sales floor would charge. Shah got away with this for years. We don't know when the DOJ started investigating her, but it can't have helped her case when she went on Bravo's post-nihilist cringe fest, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, to do what all of the housewives do: gloat about her expensive, over-the-top, lavish lifestyle, a mansion which Shah called the Shah Ski Chalet, which later turned out to be rented, expensive cars, clothing and accessories, many of which later turned out to be fake, $80,000 birthday parties, and a cadre of assistants called the Shah Squad, who catered to her every whim. Needless to say, Shah did not come across as a calm, rational person.
Roll your eyes and look over there one more time, I'll drown you, bitch!
If I had to guess, I'd say she found out she was under Uncle Sam's microscope before the first season started filming, and basically had a long on-screen breakdown. But whatever. The DOJ began investigating Shah at some point, and very nearly arrested her on camera. On the 30th of March, 2021, they charged Shah and her first assistant, Stuart Smith, with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. After this, the first thing Shah did was enter a motion to suppress statements that she made to police after being Mirandized. She said that she didn't know what she was signing when they Mirandized her because her contacts were blurry and she didn't have her glasses and she was confused and she doesn't have experience with the criminal justice system and she thought the police were talking to her because she used to have a stalker and she thought maybe it was related to that. Interesting considering the later story about a woman who had a restraining order against Shah. The motion was denied, and although we don't know the contents of her statements to police, presumably they were used against her. Over and over again. Of course, Shah then capitalized on her arrest because she is a narcissistic sociopath, alleges my friend Steve. Her tagline on the following season of Real Housewives of was "The only thing I'm guilty of is being Shah-mazing." She began selling merchandise t-shirts, jackets and hoodies ranging from $25 to $125, emblazoned with "Justice for Jen Shah" and "Free Jen Shah." She also got her family members involved in all of this. Her cousin, Danny Filippi, organized a GoFundMe asking for $2.5 million for Shah's legal defense, stating that she was wrongfully accused. The page was removed almost immediately as it violated the GoFundMe terms and conditions. When Hulu made a documentary about the accusations, Shah's aunt appeared in it to defend her. Shah herself was all over Twitter and Instagram proclaiming her innocence. On Real Housewives, she accused some of her castmates of being responsible for her arrest. She appeared on camera during meetings with her lawyer. That seems like a great idea. On the second season reunion, she talked about being wrongfully accused and said that she was fighting the charges in order to stand up for marginalized people who don't have the money to fight. She made it clear that she was planning to take this thing all the way to trial, which was scheduled for January the 6th of 2023. But in November of 2021, her first assistant, Stuart Smith, changed his plea to guilty on 3 counts: conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, and obstruction of justice for lying under oath in a deposition with the FTC. Shah maintained her innocence, loudly, but then, on the 11th of July 2022, she changed her plea to guilty. We cannot know exactly why, but I suspect that the evidence against her was very powerful, and it would be pointless for her to keep fighting it. Some of the evidence the DOJ had that we do know about was pretty damning, like a series of text messages where she discusses moving the business overseas to minimize risk, followed by the statement, "Then we can run this for a long time." Other text messages show her instructing employees to delete sales scripts from the company's Google Drive, to get rid of computers at the office, and to start communicating on Telegram so their messages wouldn't be saved. There were also messages sent to Stuart Smith, coaching him on what to say in his deposition with the FTC. These messages are particularly important because they demonstrate that Shah did, in fact, know pretty much everything that was going on. Prior to sentencing, Shah's lawyers requested that she be treated leniently, due to having no prior record and being an upstanding citizen. All the usual stuff you see in white-collar criminal sentencing, and they suggested that she receive no more than 3 years. The prosecution wanted her to serve 10. Prosecutors also had a last-minute addition before sentencing, testimony from a woman who had a restraining order against Shah in 2019. Shah was allegedly having an affair with the woman's husband, and the woman sent screenshots of text messages to Shah's own husband. Shah tried to contact the woman but was ignored, prompting Shah to drive across state lines and show up on the woman's doorstep at 2:30 a.m. The police were called and a restraining order issued. The prosecution in the case wanted this information to be considered by the judge before sentencing, as they felt it was indicative of her character. But anyway, in the end, Shah was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison, and was ordered to pay $9.5 million in restitution. She must turn herself in on February the 17th, 2023. In the meantime, she's apparently out partying. She was recently spotted throwing a lavish dinner party for 20 people at an expensive restaurant in New York, presumably with your grandma's money. She will likely be serving her time at a cushy, low-security, club-fed prison in Texas, where she will have access to commissary items like gourmet snacks. Pot noodle. I definitely think she deserved more. Even the 10 years recommended by the prosecutor seems kind of lenient when you read the impact statements, because they're really quite devastating. They're full of very old people, think your grandma knitting, whose lives have been ruined. Old people who now have to sell their houses that they've spent their entire lives earning and paying the mortgage off for. Old people who now at 75 have to go and work for Walmart because they've got no money. It's really disgusting. The scam itself was not clever at all, if only she could have bought herself a brain. There was no way she was going to get away with this for a long time, and it's a failure that she did get away with it for as long as she did. As for Bravo, I'm sure you can guess what I think about them. They're a completely amoral corporation. What a surprise. You do you. I'm never going to watch Bravo again. Bravo, I hope you go bankrupt. All of you, personally. You cur. Thanks very much for watching. Happy New Year! It's the year 2023. That's the year we're going to do it. We're going to have a great year. Things are going to be awesome. You, me, a bottle of scotch, a Lotus Elan, bit of rust on the side. Doesn't matter, it's just around the door. Driving down the highway. Highway 66, but it's a Sunday, so it's empty. Oh, and it's really hot, but it's not too hot. There's quite a lot of wind. We're going to have a great time. Crack it open. See you next time.